you noticed that those people with wealth and power really like to build objects? Something you don't really think about necessarily if you're just your average citizen wandering about here, that what would be the point in building such an enormous symbol of a barrier and have it not act as a barrier at all? The answer is psychogeography, the way the physical environment affects your emotions and your behavior. Really, it's here to remind us that we are small and they are big. As some of you may know, that is the historic boundary between the City of Westminster on this side and the City of London on the other. When the King comes here, he is met by the Lord Mayor of London, and they perform a ritual, an ancient ritual, using a special item from their occult tradition.
After saying hello to one another, the Lord Mayor offers the King the pearl sword. The King rests his hand on it because it's his choice to take it or not. Then he offers it back to the Lord Mayor. It's a ritual about mutual trust. It is a ritual, and the object of significance, the pearl sword, represents the balance between the two authorities. The pearls represent the moon and the feminine spiritual authority. The blade represents the glinting sunlight and the masculine physical authority. The moon and the sun, the night and the day, the spiritual and the physical, female and male.
The pearl sword is used as a symbol of balance, natural balance, between the two authorities, the royal authority and the non-royal authority. Of course, for us citizens, there's no need for any ceremony or anything when we go through this boundary. But something still changes. The laws are different. My legal status as a human man is actually dependent on where my feet are touching. That is actually the root of the word status, is to stand. And now that I'm in a different jurisdiction and my status has changed, it is actually expected that my behaviour will change along with it. It would be even more so if, instead of being a city versus a city, it was actually the wilderness out there and a grand city here. They would need some kind of important feature on the boundary to remind the wild man of the quality of moral behaviour that would be expected. That is a spike. The ancient entrance of the City of London from London Bridge, of course, used to have a gate that had spikes, heads on spikes, and a head on a spike would communicate very clearly to me as a wild man coming into the city that I needed to modify my behaviour. I couldn't just behave like I'm up a mountain and it's life and death, because I could get imprisoned, tortured, ejected back into the wild, beaten up. But if I'm honourable and I get on with the locals and I follow all the local customs, I'll be granted status to stand in their place and enjoy an illusion of freedom. But as I walk around the city, I might see one of their crests or symbols, and that will remind me that I am small and they are big. And if they wanted to on a whim, they could end my every hope and dream with the click of their fingers.
It's funny how a massive mile-long stack of electrified razor wire on top of a large wall is so effective as a deterrent that no one is ever going to even bother trying to climb over it. So it never actually performs its designed vicious function. Its mere visual appearance is enough to mold human behavior into a more adequate form.
The reason for the high security is that the legal difference between standing on this side of the wall and the other side of the wall is really quite remarkable. If I was standing like 1 meter outside of this wall, everything would be fine. Nobody would actually care. But if I was standing 1 meter inside that wall, well, that's when interesting things start to happen. Humans would approach me, and they would become sort of loud and agitated. And then some more people would come, and these people would be more interested in sort of touching my body, dragging at me, twisting my arms, and that's what the barbed wire is symbolizing. The violence, the entanglement, the harm. So you might think, nah, the reason they get upset if you go over there is because it's private property. But here's some brutal truth for you. This whole island is private property and has been for 1,000 years. This area here is just as privately owned as that area over there. Because the actual truth of the matter is, you have no absolute right to be anywhere at all. Of course, nowadays, in the modern world, a lot of the walls and barriers have disappeared. We just sort of migrate around, and we're unconsciously moving between jurisdictional areas without even batting an eyelid. Of course, the ultimate boundary was supposed to be the national border, and people tend to move through that without batting an eyelid nowadays. There used to be a barrier here too, a big gate, but the removal of the barrier actually symbolises the freedom of movement for those from the Commonwealth countries. And you know, they say that Britain is uniquely placed to deal with this hugely diverse community that we've adopted because of our experiences with the British Commonwealth. What people tend to forget is that during the good old days of the British Commonwealth, the target populations were engineered with behavioural science, and they were delivered sparkling propaganda for their whole lives to gain their full allegiance. They would have to sing God Save the King or the Queen or whatever, and hang pictures of the royal family in their houses. They were given a system of education that had a political message woven into the teaching material, and that message was this: Britain is good, spiritually and physically. But they don't do that anymore. I mean, they do it to these people. These people are tourists. They tell these people that Britain is good all the time. But they don't do it to the domestic population anymore. Instead, people learn that Britain is in some way bad or is guilty of historic crimes, and social media tells them that Britain should be fleeced as a punishment. I can remember a time when I thought that historic British imperialism was evil. It was mostly because of a lack of proper understanding of the proper context of the world during the imperial days, and also just not really a full appreciation of what Britain actually brought to the world during that time. The innovation that kick-started the Industrial Revolution is essentially the reason we're all here and we're all doing all right. Don't get me wrong or anything, I'm not about to start singing God Save the King, but I didn't really mind singing that or God Save the Queen when I was young. I really didn't mind it. And I don't understand why we don't do that today. We need to stop telling the children that the world is going to end in 12 years. And we need to force them to sing at the flag and to plan their lives around the reality that they have around 60 years before the world just carries on without them.